Tony's parents have quite a secret. Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then revert dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel text and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This takes place before the universe reboot and the start of all new, all different Marvel, but we've been told that the events from this story will be reflected in future Iron Man stories. Plus, you know, it's a retconned origin for Tony Stark. Thought you guys might want to know that. Tony has been in space recently, teaming up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but while in space, he witnessed the destruction of an entire civilization at the hands of an evil robot named 451. He has now made it his job to find 451 and stop him from destroying anything else. So he informs Star-Lord that he'll be back, but he has a mission. He recruits a bounty hunter named Death's Head to help him in this search, and they go back to the destroyed civilization to pick up a signal and track 451. This leads the two of them to 451's signal on a Badoon ship that he commandeered, where Tony tells Death's Head to try and take him alive, but if they need to kill 451, they will. But as they prepare to ambush 451, Tony realizes his mistake. 451 already hired Death's Head to work for him and bring Tony to him, and 451 already hacked Pepper, which was the AI inside of Tony's armor taking control of all of Tony's systems. Tony is helpless and at 451's mercy. Death's Head leaves with his payment, and 451 walks Tony into the deeper recesses of the ship. Tony argues with him, but 451 sits him down and intends to show him something that might convince him to help with 451's master plan. Tony tells him that he won't be helping in any ridiculous plan, and as he begins the old movie reel, Tony sees his father, Howard Stark, on the screen. Son, there are things that I haven't told you, things that are going to be hard, and I hope you can forgive me. We love you so much, but this was for the future, for Earth. We did this for you. Then, to Tony's shock, 451 walks up behind Howard Stark. Son, we need you to know the truth, and you may need a drink. Then 451 interrupts. It's not a ridiculous plan, Mr. Stark. It's a long one. You see, half a lifetime ago, Howard and Maria Stark finally managed to conceive a child. But the doctor told them that this baby wouldn't come to term. At least, they should hope that he wouldn't. Howard was lost. How could he have all of this influence, power, money, and not be able to save his own child? So he decided that there had to be an answer out there, and he started a journey to find that answer. He went around the world, but in the end, he ended up fittingly in the Last Chance Bar in Nevada. He met with an alien that works for an alien family that runs a casino. The owner of the casino got his hands on a robot that had a mountain of data that might be useful to Howard Stark. Conveniently, the robot gave this alien named Rollo a list of humans that he would like to have help him escape, and Howard Stark was near the top. Howard Stark decided to assemble a team of Jimmy Woo, the Bear, Nessa the Kitten, Dum Dum Dugan, and Thunderbolt Ross to break in and get that robot, the Stark 7. The plan was brilliant, as you would assume from Howard Stark. The aliens had a personal cloaking technology, and Howard rigged the robot with it and his team. Using other members of the team, he made it seem like they stole the robot. The alien family freaked out, grabbing Howard's inside man, and ran to the outskirts of town where the meetup was supposed to be. But then all of Howard's team began to reappear in the room with the robot, who was actually still there, and they blew the roof off of the casino and they got airlifted out of there. Back in the present, Tony tells 451 that he doesn't believe any of this. It's crazy. But 451 insists that Tony will see that he did this for a good reason, and then he gasses Tony with a sedative. Howard Stark and the Stark 7 ended up going against the alien family again because the family threatened to find and kill Howard's family for the theft. And while Howard killed one of the men, 451 killed all of the aliens behind Howard's back. Then, 451 genetically altered the DNA of the child and left Howard to his family, with each of them hoping that they would never see each other again. Howard walked into his home where he saw Maria with his baby, and she asked, "What do we do now?" Howard put his chin in his hands and he told her, "We love him, I guess." Back in the present, 451 explained that's how Tony came to be, but Tony didn't want to believe it. He was furious that he still couldn't even control his own body because 451 was still controlling the armor. But 451 continued to explain. You see, Earth needs a nuclear deterrent, something to scare off the beings in space known as the Celestials. We have that, 451, and we have Thor, but 451 continues. The scale that he is talking about wouldn't even be phased by a Thor, and he wants Tony to be the pilot for this weapon, the 25,000-foot tall exoskeleton suit, the God Killer. Meanwhile, Death's Head gets a report about a robot with information that's missing, and he realizes that he just passed up on one heck of a payday, so he decides to go back and find this 451. 451 and Tony land on a planet housing the God Killer, and Tony can see the destruction that this thing is capable of. 451 also says that this is the only thing capable of beating a Celestial. Before this war, there were Celestials throughout the entire galaxy. They step inside and 451 activates the God Killer with an autopilot course for Earth as it lifts off, destroying the very planet that it was just standing on. 451 explains that's why they need a pilot. It'll crash into things on autopilot. Tony tells 451 that the first thing I'm gonna do in the pilot seat is step on you, 451. You would have, but once you bond with the God Killer, you will be considerably more amendable. The creators kept their pilots on a short genetic leash. I've tweaked it so you'll align perfectly with my plans. Yeah, I did think that was a big hole in your plan to have overlooked. But that's when things get interesting as Death's Head arrives and begins blasting at 451. He quickly orders Tony's suit of armor to open fire on Death's Head, so Death's Head blasts Tony through a wall. Tony then asks Pepper what directive 451 gave her, and she tells him to curtail any hostile actions against 451 or the vessel and prevent escape. Tony smiles. Wasn't planning on leaving. Let's go on a tour to lose the signal, and he blasts off. 451 runs as fast as he can away from Death's Head, and just as Death's Head is about to smash him, he hacks into the robot, taking control of him. Tony gets to the deepest parts of the God Killer, and he shuts down the Pepper AI. Then he goes into dummy mode, where the suit will only respond to his muscles, and he runs for it. 451 quickly realizes that he lost Pepper, and therefore can't hack the suit, and Tony has 4 miles of robot to hide it. So 451 decides to bring Death's Head into the fight. Death's Head begins chasing Tony around, and Tony has none of his suit's normal defenses, but luckily 451 left Death's Head with his voice, and he explains to Tony that he was going to kill him because he found Tony by tracing the signal of his armory, the one that he brought with him when he and Death's Head traced 451's signal. You know, the one that's in the loading bay? Tony smiles. My armory's here? Thank you. 451 freaks out. Silence! Leaving you the freedom of speech was a mistake. That's always been my problem. I try to be nice. Tony runs into the hallway and he hacks into his own repulsors so that he can fire them like lasers. 451 takes off into the sky to chase him, but Death's Head's programming is to protect 451. So he jumps off, grabbing 451, and begins to plummet with him to the bottom of the God Killer to protect him from the blast. Tony rides the elevator up, stating, Death's Head, I owe you one. And 451 tells Death's Head to let go. So Death's Head falls to his death, which saddens 451. But it's time to get Tony, and he has a new plan to do that. He redirects the God Killer armor to a planet. The only way to stop it is to put a pilot in place. Having only minutes, Tony sees no other answer, so he runs over to an interface station and he puts on the helmet, thinking to himself, it's time for the Avengers to step up and stop me, hopefully. But the helmet doesn't work. He can't interface. 451 has calculations wrong. He looks in horror as he's rocketing right for the planet, and he calls out to 451, you got it wrong. You need to stop this. But it's too late, as the God Killer armor goes right through the planet, destroying it and all of its inhabitants. 451 looks saddened by the loss of life. Cold, Tony. I thought I'd made you better than that. No, my goal is still valid. And he redirects the God Killer to crash through Earth. Tony will take control of it. Tony speeds over to his armory with a plan in mind. He grabs a new suit of armor, and he hardlines into all of the armors that are in the armory, while he activates an earlier version of Pepper pre-hacking. 451 makes projections of himself, and they begin a raw battle with no chance of hacking. Tony and his armors versus 451 and his projections, except Tony's armors are much better at fighting, and Tony uses the confusion to shoot out 451's hacking device. He then walks up to the rest of the armory to walk out with his biggest armor that he brought, and he bombards all of the projections, dissipating them. He then walks over to 451 and he shouts at him, you wanted me to understand, but now it's your turn. Look, 451, look! Tony drags him over to an interface and he shoves his hand into it. Nothing is happening! You failed! I can't control this! 451 is stunned. How did he get it wrong? It should work. Why isn't it working with Tony's DNA? And then he counts. 400 years, 451 millions dead to justify the means. He gets stuck in a loop. One must not act. One should not have acted. One must not act. One should not have acted. Tony starts shaking him as they get closer to Earth. 451, stop the God Killer! But he's stuck in the loop, and Tony can't break him out of it. You made a mistake! Own up to it! Act! So 451 sends out the command, God Killer, abort. Then Pepper reports that they've missed Earth, but the God Killer is about to absorb itself into another dimension. 451 explains that he failed. He needs to remove the God Killer from this universe, and he locked both himself and Tony inside. All of his creations must be removed from existence. Tony starts to tell him that they need to leave, but 451 is stuck in another loop. One must delete the error. One must delete the error. And then he begins to delete himself. The countdown begins, so Tony grabs 451's body, and he begins to rocket through the God Killer looking for an exit. He puts 2 and 2 together, and he realizes that Death's Head got his tech from 451. So he hacks into 451's tech, and then he gets the access codes, and then at full speed, he escapes just as the God Killer is warping itself into another dimension. It then blinks out of existence behind Tony as he flees, and it is gone. He checks back in with the Guardians, and then he heads home with the corpse of 451. He has a hunch. He goes home and he gets some pizza, and then the real Pepper Potts surprises him with a party. But Tony can't get his mind out of what happened and his secret origin, so he begins digging through Howard Stark's paperwork trying to get answers. And now that he was finally looking between the lines, he gets what he was looking for. And and what he finds shocks him. He drives to a location that he wasn't even sure existed to find a person that he didn't even know existed. You see, half a lifetime ago, Howard and Maria knew something was off about 451. As helpful as he seemed, something didn't add up. Howard looked at all of the DNA segments that 451 was adding to Tony, and he realized that there was something extra there. Something that looked like an automatic time bomb. So he changed it. He altered the DNA of his son. That's where the problems began, because after Maria gave birth, they started to hear a wheezing noise, and the doctors told them that their child would not survive without the assistance of an iron lung to help him breathe for the rest of his life. Whatever Howard tinkered hurt the boy, and he never meant for that. But regardless, their son needed to be hidden away. 451 could never know what they did. Then to possibly confuse 451, they adopted their son Tony, because they still couldn't conceive a baby. Tony walked into the hospice and into one of the back rooms where he found Arno, his brother. Arno was in a device to help him breathe, and he was unable to speak without the assistance of a computer. But he smiled, and through his computer, he told Tony that he would have figured this out a decade ago. Tony told him that 451 was gone, and the original plot is over. Arno is free, and together, they've decided to help the world as the Stark brothers. We're gonna do the next parts to this story very soon, so I hope you guys are looking forward to find out about Tony and his brother. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Comicstorian and on Twitter at Comicstorian, and we also do video game comic books over on our gaming channel, Eligible Monster, every Friday, so make sure you click the link down below and go subscribe over there. I'll see you guys next time right here.